If you're someone who thinks deeply before you act, so if you analyze or process or weigh options and try to make the best decision or the right decision, whatever that may be, this episode is for you. Because the problem usually isn't that you're incapable of acting. It's that you've been taught, either implicitly or explicitly, that clarity has to come before movement. And I'm not going to disagree with that, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But for highly capable people, that belief feels responsible and strategic and mature. But here's the question I want you to sit with for a minute. What if the thing you're waiting for, that clarity or that confidence or that certainty, is actually being delayed by the waiting itself? Today, we're talking about why so many smart or capable people stall. And it's not because they're lazy. Honestly, guys, it really isn't. It's also not because you're afraid of work. It's because of over-relying on thinking in situations where action is what actually creates the information that you may be looking for. So I'm not here to tell you to jump blindly or to move recklessly or to even stop processing. That advice is seriously impractical, and honestly, it's invalidating for a lot of people. What I want to help you do is to find the right amount of clarity, just enough, right? So that you can move forward intelligently without forcing yourself to become something you're not. By the end of this episode, I hope that you'll understand why clarity is often a byproduct of movement and how overthinking creates a false sense of control, how to build confidence and trust your intuition without abandoning your natural way of thinking. So if you've been stuck, frustrated with your results, or if you're quietly wondering why you're not moving as fast as you know you could, stay with me. So this is about learning how to act smartly and imperfectly and with grace. There are two different kinds of people in the world, and everybody is either going to be one or the other, or a variation, a gradient in between. And that's people who make decisions very quickly and people who analyze and think a lot before they process a lot before they make a decision. And like I said, there's a gradient between the two. Most people tend to be on the analyzing side. They tend to have to think a lot before they make choices, at least in my world and my experience working with clients. A lot of people tend to be in that place because even somebody who is a fast decision maker can find themselves in overanalysis if they're not careful. And then there's some people who act too quickly. They're rash, and they take risks that, make a lot of people uncomfortable. And some of them become very rich, and the rest of us are like, gosh, man, if only I were able to do that. But what we don't see is that a lot of them do end up going bankrupt. They do end up messing their lives up. And so there's this balancing act between overanalyzing and acting too rashly. And it's going to come down to your personality type a lot of the times. But even within your personality type, there is the ability to build that ability to make decisions, that ability to act quickly. I do believe that you can get better at that. But expecting someone who needs to analyze and process to become a fast decision maker is impractical. But if you find yourself stalling too much, if you're unhappy with your results, I want to see if we can help you get the right amount of clarity so you can act smartly. Before we go any further, I want to name the belief that is underneath all of this. For a lot of capable people, waiting feels responsible. It feels mature. It feels like proof that you are a thoughtful or strategic or not reckless type person. And somewhere along the way, that thoughtful waiting became tied to identity. So I'm the kind of person who thinks things through. I don't make impulsive decisions. I'm careful. I'm smart. And acting without clarity doesn't just feel uncomfortable. It feels like a threat to who you believe you are. And that's why the advice to act before you know where you're going is so hard to hear. Not because you don't know what to do, but because acting sooner feels like betraying a version of yourself that you have learned to trust. And like I said, I'm not going to ask you, and I'm not going to tell you to not analyze or think. I've seen firsthand what happens when an analytical person tries to stop that part of themselves. It's not good, and it shouldn't need to happen. It leads to chaos. It leads to anxiety, a lot of anxiety and depression and discouragement. And I honestly do not believe that people who analyze and who need time to think and process are in the wrong. I also don't believe that they're necessarily in the right. There's just different personalities. And I do believe that there is something to be said about learning to make decisions faster. I'm not going to tell you that it's bad to think things through or that it's good to be impulsive at making decisions. It's good to be careful, guys. I really dislike the idea out there that being careful is bad. What I want to do is challenge the belief, sorry, that you don't have enough information to move forward, because you might have the information you need. You might have enough clarity to act. And there are a lot of reasons why people wait before they act. They have a misconception of strategies. So they feel like they need the entire roadmap before they start. And if they can't see every step, they hesitate. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes it is accurate that if you don't know where you're going, you cannot start it. And sometimes you need multiple steps in front of you in order to make a decision and make that choice to move. But sometimes it is just hesitation. Sometimes it is procrastination. Sometimes it is not recognizing what you already have on your side. And sometimes it's not recognizing that action leads to the clarity that you need. There's also a fear and a self-protection that's in there. And we are hardwired to avoid risk. Not we, a lot of people. I mean, gosh, if you guys watch that show about the guy, I can't remember what it's called, but you'll know what I'm talking about, many of you. He's like this guy who climbs rock walls. He does rock climbing. What is it called? Goes out in nature without a rope, which is absolutely insane for me. And I am not afraid of heights, and I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie myself, right? But that is just absolute insanity to me. And so there is a level of self-protection that is needed in there. And we are hardwired. A lot of us are hardwired to avoid risk and to avoid pain. And we overthink to avoid making mistakes. But sometimes that fear, that self-protection can actually lead you to positions that are worse than if you had taken action earlier. And I've got a lot of personal stories about that. I will just share really quickly one that my husband has talked about before. He stayed at a job for 15 years that was truly, truly awful for him. And he's like, he quit 5 years too late. And he really wishes that he'd quit earlier than he did. And he just needed that clarity that the next steps outlined. He needed to feel that safety and that protection. And he learned that through the experiences that we've had over the last year, that we will be taken care of. And I'm not going to say quit a job before you have something to jump to. I honestly believe quitting without a plan, without anything to go to, is incredibly reckless, especially when you have a family. But sometimes it's more important to get yourself out of a situation that is truly, truly toxic and bad for you than it is for you to have a safe landing. And gosh, man, some of you, that rubbed really wrong, and I apologize for that, but it's true. And then sometimes not being able to, sometimes the reason people wait before they act is because they aren't confident enough. And they feel that clarity and it will lead to confidence so that they know they can make a decision to move, but confidence usually builds with action. And there's also the element of perfectionism. So wanting the correct direction. They want to make sure everything is set up exactly perfectly before they step ahead, before they move forward, because they don't want to look like, they don't want to fail. They don't want the pain that comes from failing. They don't want people to look at them and be like, oh my gosh, how did you miss that? Or why didn't you think that through a little bit more? But it is almost impossible to be absolutely perfect, to have the perfect plan ahead of time. A lot of the time, action will take you towards that perfect plan, and you'll find that plan wasn't that great after all, or wasn't where it needed to be, or it wasn't exactly what you thought it was, and then you have to course correct. And sometimes waiting leads to you stalling, it leads to stagnation, where if you took a few steps, you would grow quicker, which would get you to the results that you want faster. And sometimes people wait. They wait because they're waiting for clarity. And it a lot of times, obviously that's the whole point of this episode, is you're waiting for clarity. But clarity is sometimes a byproduct of movement. A lot of the times it is. And you get more clarity as you take each step. And then clarity is also they feel like they have control. And the problem, you guys, we are never actually in control. There are so many things that are outside of our control, and that's going to lead to anxiety, and I understand that, but making peace with the fact that you aren't ever fully in control is something that it's a good place to be. Honestly, it really is. Okay, sometimes we misunderstand readiness. There's a certain level of readiness that needs to happen before undertaking any endeavor. And I can get behind that 100%. Like I don't think it's a good idea to tear your living room wall down because you want to expand your house before you have prepared for that. And depending on what the thing is, you're going to need a lot more preparation and a lot more readiness before you're going to be ready to start it. And some projects require a lot, some projects don't require that much. And the thing that I'm seeing a lot of times with my clients is they hesitate on the small things because those small things overwhelm them, or because they don't have enough information to move forward. And so when they come to me, I'm like, okay, well, if you did this and that opens up this whole thing. And sometimes all you really need is a little bit more information. And over analyzers, they tend to kind of get stuck in their own heads where they don't hear that information that's out there. And so they're thinking, they're processing, they're thinking, they're processing, and they end up in this loop that just goes and goes and goes. And sometimes you just need a little bit of a jog to recognize that that's where you're at, to get information, to be able to make a decision to move forward. And then you find out, it really wasn't that big of a deal, which is not a really great feeling, especially if you've been stuck in that loop for a long time. But too much readying is actually procrastination. So highly capable people are often excellent at analytics, and they over rely on it a lot of the time. And I'm not trying to tell you to stop analyzing. That is really dangerous advice. Like I can't stand it. And I was even noticing when I was researching for this episode and just like making sure that I knew exactly where I was wanting to take it, that like even AI is like, guys, stop analyzing and stop thinking and stop processing. And you need to just make a decision and move forward. And that's dangerous. Like telling somebody to stop being themselves, like that's awful. It's awful advice. And so that's where I'm like, challenge the belief that you need to make decisions quickly, that you need to be somebody who acts fast, because you don't. You need to be you, but you need to be an optimized version of you. And I'm going to talk about dangers of overthinking now, and a lot of them are going to be things that you're recognizing, but I do want to get them out into the open right now in case any of it's something that hasn't occurred to you before. But clarity often follows action. So that first step can be incredibly revealing when it comes to that perfect plan that you thought you had, when it comes to that perfect goal. The first step will tell you where you were wrong and tell you where you need to adjust. And highly analytical people, they try to predict all possible variables, but guys, this is impossible. You can't predict everything. And I don't want to discourage you from trying to be ready at all, because I know this is a very important part of your process, but plan on being surprised, and pleasantly. Okay. So, like my husband he's a very, 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 very analytical, very, very high processing person. And sometimes like he expects changes in his plan to be horrible, but not every change is a bad one. Some of them are actually really quite good. And so if you go in thinking that maybe this will be good, that can actually help you move forward faster, because you're not expecting worst case scenarios. So overthinking also gives you a false sense of control. I already talked about that. Perfect plans don't exist, and waiting for one will delay your progress. Because action frequently generates information. Even small steps will help you generate what you want and what you need, like that, the information that you need to continue to move forward, to pivot, to adjust, and to grow. And the most effective people learn to act even when they don't have all of the information they need. They trust that the path will reveal itself as they go forward. And when you're in that over analytical side, and where you tend to need to process and analyze, I'll go into things that you can do later on that will help you get to that position faster, because I think that, like, if you're an analyzer or an analytical personality, you can optimize your process so that you aren't stuck in that loop of thinking and analyzing and thinking and processing. And I said at the start, I've said it multiple times, if you need processing time, you absolutely have to give it to yourself. You also need to give yourself grace, because you're going to come up with that plan, and you're going to recognize that your plan wasn't perfect, and that shame and that guilt, that blame, don't do that to yourself. Okay. There's no way you could have known ahead of time that where you were going wasn't going to lead to where you wanted to do. Just Relax and recognize that not everything is going to be horrible. Don't try to change who you are. The world needs more people like you. We also need more people like you who are confident in their decisions, though, who trust their intuition enough to act even when they might not have all of the clarity that they feel they need. We need you, and we need you, an optimized version of you. We need a confident you, a you who trusts their intuition. And so I don't belong to the camp that says that you have every person in the world needs to jump at everything and needs to act, go, go, go. Like, I've said this before. I like hustle culture. Like, I like go, go, go. And I respond respond very well to situations that require people to act quick and think quick. But that is insanely impractical for a large portion of the population, and it invalidates a significant portion of the population to expect everybody to go, 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 and expect everybody to make fast decisions. That invalidates a lot of you. And I am so grateful that I'm married to the man I am, because he has taught me so much about who I am and taught me so much about how important it is that we have people who are high in strategy and who think and analyze. Like, we need people like you. I do believe, again, that learning to act faster is a skill, and I believe you can develop. And it's not going to be as fast as some of you will probably want it to be. But optimizing your strengths and optimizing your ability to act is good. And we don't need you to be more like the people who are go, go, go. We need you to be more like you and a better version of you. So how to gain clarity, at least enough to act. Some of these things are not going to be a surprise to you guys, but like writing things down, like journaling, getting thoughts out of your head, getting that anxiety out of your head, getting the dark thoughts out of your head, that worst case scenario out of your head, writing all of that down, writing down everything that concerns you and everything that worries you, writing it all down on paper. First off, it reduces mental clutter. It makes it so that there's not so many things swimming around in your brain and just bumping into each other and looping and looping and looping. But also, sometimes when you get all of it written down, it allows you to see it's not that big of a deal. And some, like, that worst case scenario is not going to happen. And even the most practical bad thing that's going to happen is not a big deal. And some of the decisions that you're working on are going to be really big ones that are a big deal. But the worst case scenario almost never happens. And knowing what that worst case scenario is and where that safety net is can actually help you make decisions faster. And what I mean by safety net is, like, what would happen what's the worst thing that could happen, and what's the best thing that could happen, and what is the thing that could prevent the worst thing from happening. And understanding what that is and where it is in your brain can help you make decisions faster. Also, limit options. Too many options leads to overwhelm and paralysis. One of the things that my husband and I have talked about frequently, again, because he's constantly learning about how to make decisions faster, how to stop analyzing. I'm like, you got to analyze, allow yourself time to process. But he was reading a study or an article once that was talking about how when you go into, like, say, a Levi company, where the company that sells jeans, right? They will have like 50 options. And back in the day, you'd go to a store and there'd be one or two options. And what it did was, too many options led to people regretting their choices. When people only had one or two options, they tended to be happier with the choice they made. And so if you limit the options and you reduce options, it actually, first off, it leads to less overwhelm and less paralysis, but it also leads you to being more satisfied with the choice you made. And so if you've got too many options, write all of the options down, where your choices could lead you, the kind of choices that you're trying to make, the things you're choosing between, and eliminate ones that you're not really interested in, or the ones that don't get you where you want to go. So, like, if you know where your goal is, remove the ones that don't help you get there. And that will help you. Number one, it'll help you feel more confident in your choice. Number two, it'll help you be more satisfied with the choice that you make. And number three, it allows you to feel less overwhelmed and less paralysis. Also, step away from the issue. We get so caught up in our brains and in our emotions that it's really hard to think outside of that, and it's also really hard to step away from it. But stepping away from the issue, meaning get away from the situation where you have to make a decision. If the decision's completely in your brain, getting away from other people, and I'm actually going to talk about that in a little while, but getting stepping away from the issue and stepping away from the emotions, like the people that are causing the emotions that are making it so that you cannot make a choice. Step away from that and allow yourself some time to think about it, sleep on it. Give yourself a deadline though. If it's a big decision, give yourself enough, like several days, even a week. If it's a smaller decision, give yourself a couple of hours, but give yourself time to step away, to think about it and to process and to be away from the emotions so that you can get clarity. Okay, so how to build confidence. Confidence comes from small wins. If you are allowing yourself to make small choices that lead to good results, you will build confidence faster. You will find that you trust yourself more. Confidence also comes from trusting your intuition. And how do you trust your intuition? By practicing. And I'll get into that in a little bit. So when you want building your confidence, building your confidence also includes writing down pros and cons lists, paying attention to your past failures, reframing it as a learning experience. So what did you learn? What will you not do again? What will you not repeat? Basically, reframing that, like I said, as a learning experience so that it doesn't feel as painful and that it makes it so that your choice that led to failure, quote unquote, wasn't a bad choice because look at all the things that you learned. And trusting your intuition, how you trust your intuition, it's going to be things that, like getting to know yourself. So quieting your mind, meditation, I can't remember exactly what it means, but meditating basically means to learn yourself, get to know yourself, to know who you are. So meditation is really powerful. Prayer is really powerful. Silence is really powerful. Quieting your mind, the thinking mind, the one that's constantly going, where the looping is happening. So allowing yourself that time to get to know yourself. Journaling is a really great way. And my husband hates journaling. He absolutely hates journaling. And so I know there's going to be some of you that will also hate it as well, but please consider it. It's a really great way to understand what's going on in your mind. It's a great way to get to know yourself so that you can learn to trust your intuition. All right. Also, spend time alone, away from noise and away from technology. Put your phone away, go for a hike. This is one of my husband's absolute favorite things to do. He will leave his phone home and he will leave, actually, he doesn't leave his phone home anymore, thank goodness, because when he goes hiking, he goes way up in the mountains right outside our house. And I'm paranoid that he's, I'm not truly paranoid, but I do worry sometimes, like if he takes a little bit longer, that something happened. And when he's got his phone, I've always got his location so I can find him. But he doesn't bring earbuds. He just has his phone there with Strava tracking his steps, his miles, and all of that. But he doesn't bring earbuds. He's alone. He's silent. There's silence around him. He's just got nature around him. That is really valuable. And if you aren't allowing yourself time to be alone and to be away from noise and technology, then you are you are shortchanging yourself. You're basically handicapping yourself because your greatest power is your thinking ability. And you might think that you're thinking, but you're really just surrounded by noise. And when you're on technology, when you're watching videos, it's not you actually learning how to think better. It's filling your brain with more words that you don't actually need. And so when you step away from all that noise and away from technology, you're actually strengthening your brain and your ability to make decisions. You're strengthening your ability to trust your intuition and your ability to be confident and to get clarity. And so if you do not have a practice of time alone and silence, meditation, any of that stuff, I'm going to challenge you to get that habit going. Do it every single day. And if you can't do it every single day, commit to at least once a week or once a month. And it will help so much, I promise. Okay, so once you've got more clarity, once you've got more confidence, once you trust your intuition more, now that is the time to act. And so that you can find success, so that you can move forward with your life. So make small decisions that lead towards your big goal and act on those decisions. Like you can make a decision and then not act, and it gives you that little dopamine rush. Yay, I made a choice. But if you don't actually act on that decision that you made, then you're not going to be moving towards your goal. The more comfortable you get with this process, the easier it'll be. I absolutely promise. But don't forget to treat yourself with grace, guys. Detach yourself from the results. Stay curious. What new thing will I learn from this action, and what new thing will I learn from the results? That's part of treating yourself with grace instead of judging yourself, instead of the shame from that endless loop that you might be in. Stay curious again, and again reframe it as something to learn and something to discover. Anyway, so as you gain confidence and experience and small wins, and as you learn to trust your intuition, you'll gradually speed up the decision-making process. And as a result, the action process. But just remember, you don't need to rush yourself. You don't need perfect certainty to move forward. Sometimes all you need is to take the next small step, and the rest will refill itself as you go. So if you want more conversations like this about belief and action and building success in a way that fits how you're wired, please consider subscribing. Whether you do or you're not, thank you so much for giving me a little bit of your time today. I don't take that lightly. But remember to be gentle with yourself and to stay curious, keep yourself open to moving forward, even without all of the clarity you feel you need, one step at a time.